What's up, guys? Dean Marchese here, aka the BeastnJ, with your Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice review. I've seen the film last night, and I have a lot to say about it, so strap in. Now, I'm going to give you a quick spoiler-free review, and then I'm going to go into full spoilers. We're going to talk about everything. Gloves are coming off, so I will give you a warning. So quickly, overall, I thought the movie was good. I liked it. It seems to be very polarizing. I'm not surprised. I think it's going to be very polarizing, especially between critics and audiences. And then even within audiences, I think it's going to find its audience, but I think there's going to be a lot of people who have a lot of problems with it. And I understand why. For me, as a comic book fan, as a DC fan, I am more of a Marvel fan. Full disclosure, I love Marvel. I'm kind of a Marvel guy. Not a fanboy in any sense of the word. I have tons of DC stuff. I love DC. I love superheroes in general. I love comic books. I love superhero movies. So just wanted to put that out there. Full disclosure, I do tend to lean towards the Marvel side of things. However, I do love Batman. He's one of my favorite characters between Marvel and DC. And I like this movie. I may have really liked this movie. I'm not sure. I'm going to see it again tonight at the time of this recording. But anyway, overall, I thought it was good. I'm not going to put a number on it, because I think that can get kind of silly. But I'm going to tell you what I thought. Overall, I think the movie was really good. I think it did have a problem of trying to do a little bit too much, maybe a lot too much, in terms of setting up future movies and in terms of setting up the DC universe in general. They're definitely playing catch up with Marvel here, and it shows, unfortunately. The editing of this film, there's so much happening. There's so many multiple story threads that they're trying to touch on and flesh out. They don't do a great job of fleshing them out, is the problem. And the way they edited the film, as I mentioned, is just very jarring. A lot of times you're in the middle of one scene, then all of a sudden there's a cut, you're in the next scene. There's no transition. There's no alluding to what's happening next. There's no rhyme or rhythm or reason to like the way this film has been put together. I don't know how much that had to do with Zack Snyder. Probably a little bit, but I mean, there's other people involved in the film. That's my big thing. A lot of people are pinning this on being so controversial and being kind of like not so well received by critics on Zack Snyder. There's a whole team of people here. Warner Brothers is involved. There's, production teams. There's casting directors. There's a lot of other people going into this project. It's not all Zack Snyder's vision here. A lot of it, sure, is Zack Snyder's vision, but remember, there's other people calling the shots. There's plenty of people who are giving him influences and plenty of people who are helping him make these choices. So there's that. I want to put that out there. The cast, having spoken on the casting director, isn't my problem. Actually, the cast is a highlight for me. I'm a really big fan of what Amy Adams did with Lois. Henry Cavill as Superman, when he gets his time in the sun, is great. I liked him a lot, again, as Superman. I never had a problem with him as Superman. I loved Man of Steel, personally. And I liked him as Superman in Man of Steel. I think he's the best on-screen Superman that we've ever been given. And I'm happy with him as Superman moving forward through the universe. So, and then another big concern of everyone's was Ben Affleck as Batman, all that controversy when he was cast. I was one of the mind. As soon as Ben Affleck was cast, I was like, yes, this is great. And then I opened the internet and I was like, oh, really? Everybody hated it. I thought everybody would immediately be on board. Apparently not. He's great. He's awesome. It's a very different, dark Batman. It's a disturbed version of Bruce Wayne that I really appreciated. Clark and Lois together, the relationship there is really great. And Wonder Woman is awesome. Gal Gadot crushes it as Wonder Woman. My one concerning part of the cast is Lex. Jesse Eisenberg isn't terrible. He's just not Lex Luthor. He's not the Lex Luthor we were expecting. I don't actually know. Well, I'll save that. I'm going to save that for the spoiler parts. So, overall, good movie. Did a little bit too much. I'm excited to see what they do moving forward. I think there's a lot of cool things that they led into here that's going to make the DC universe seem very interesting. It's going to be very different from the Marvel universe, and I think that's really important. My two big important things in setting up the DC universe would probably be A, make it a good fleshed out universe, tell a good story. B, differentiate yourselves from Marvel's. Try not to worry so much about what Marvel's doing, which is kind of what happened here, and it definitely held the movie back. And it took some big hits because of it. So that's my spoiler-free review. Now, Ladies and gentlemen, we're going in. This is your only warning. Get out now if you haven't seen the movie yet. Come on back and watch it after. And you can check out what I thought about all the big moments and spoilers and things. And then let me know what you guys thought about them too. But I don't want you to ruin anything for yourself. There are surprises. I know the trailer seems like it showed so much. And what else could there be left? There's a lot of things left. And I don't want them ruined for you because the way they were presented to me, I was like, oh, fuck. So I don't want to rob you of that. So definitely go see the movie, pause this video, or just close out the tab, come back to it when you've seen the movie, please. Still want you to watch the video, but see the movie first and then come watch the video. So here we go. Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice spoiler-filled reward review. So here it is. So let's talk about Lex, as I just was about to get into it. Lex Luthor, they kind of mention that, like, they show up to LexCorp and they're like, Jesse Eisenberg is like, Lex put the Lex in, or my father put the Lex in front of LexCorp. So you're like, oh, well, is this Lex Luthor's son? I'm not really sure. And then they reference him as Alexander Luthor. Bruce Wayne calls him Alexander Luthor when he's going through some files in the Batcave. And you're like, well, and then he references him as Lex later. So you're like, okay, that's obviously the nickname for Alexander. That's fine. They don't really clarify that. They don't really ever tell you, like, oh, this is Lex Luthor's son, or, oh, this is Lex Luthor, his father is just the one who started the company. They don't really ever say. I don't know, maybe I'm naive. I'm sure there's probably a million people out there right now who are like, read the comics, dude. Maybe I missed something. I don't know. But for me, I was a little bit confused. Like, I didn't know who I was dealing with. I don't know if this was supposed to be Lex Luthor. Is this supposed to be Lex Luthor's son? And that's important to distinguish because the way the character behaves is not like the Lex Luthor we've seen in the comics, the games, the animated series, the animated films. It's very different. This guy is super unhinged. He's kind of a lunatic. He's psychotic. And he's kind of a conspiracist. And that plays into some things later. So it's not the Lex Luthor that we are used to. And I thought that could have used some explaining. The things that Jesse Eisenberg decides to do as Lex Luthor don't work for me personally. And again, that's because I don't know who I'm dealing with. If this was a different character altogether, if this was even if this was an original character, I'd be like, okay, cool, this guy's weird. Although there is an abrupt switch later in the film where he just goes from kind of like floaty and like kind of like a goofy, like smart, quirky guy into just full on bad guy. And it kind of goes like night and day. He just becomes a total psychopath, and then towards the end of the film, it's more towards the middle of the film. All of a sudden, Lex is on the roof. He's like, bring me Lois Lane, bring me Superman. We want this guy dead. Superman, go kill Batman to save your mother. And all of a sudden, he's just like a total bad guy. And you're like, all right, well, seems like a drastic jump. It's not a very consistent character. He was one of my big problems with this movie, personally. Some people really liked the way Jesse Eisenberg portrayed him. Some people really liked what they did with Lex Luthor in general. I'm not one of them. I could have did with a more traditional Lex Luthor. So let's jump ahead some here. Now, I think the reason they did this is because it does seem like they've been alluding to this movie that the coming of Darkseid is the big threat. It's the overarching plot that will connect all of these DC Universe films. So it does seem later we do get the head shaving at the end of the movie. As those of you who watch the movie, I hope you've all watched the movie who are listening to this. We see him get his head shaved when he's in prison, and Batman comes in and threatens him, and he talks about the bell's already been rung, the coming of the apocalypse, and this and that and the other thing. But it's like, maybe flesh that out a little bit more. Like, has this guy already been touched by Darkseid, and that's why he's so unhinged and weird, and he already is foreseeing these prophecies of the coming of the apocalypse and the death of the god and this and that? Like, they don't really tell you. They just make him seem like he just believes in this stuff just cause, or like it's a very inconsistent thing. And it would have been great to have seen the Omega symbol on him somewhere, or tattoos, or have a mention, like some kind of inkling that, yeah, this guy is so weird and crazy and not himself because he's already been touched by Darkseid by the time we meet him, which would have been fine. I totally get that. And that might be the case, but they don't tell you. So that's why Lex is a big problem for me. The action scenes in the movie, I thought were just okay. Personally, the big fight scene that we've seen talked about in the trailers, or we've seen in the trailers between Batman and Superman, which the movie is named after, is kind of boring. they don't leave a whole lot to be desired. I mean, they leave a lot to be desired. I'm all over the place today. I'm processing all my thoughts still. And I'm going to see it again tonight, so I'm really can just not think about it, just go watch it, not have to worry about what the critics have said, not worry about what I'm thinking, what I want to say to you guys. I can just go watch it and get a more clearer view. But this is fresh out of seeing it, so I just wanted to immediately tell you what I thought. But yeah, the big fight I thought was, it was cool. Like, they do some cool stuff. There's some really iconic shots in there that I'm gonna remember forever. But I don't know. Like, it seemed very rushed, the conflict between them. It was very simple. For the whole thing is Superman. Okay, Lex sends Superman to go kill Batman, so the world can see Superman for what he really is Lex's plan, pretty much. So Superman's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. And then Lex reveals, like, okay, well, I have your mother, so you're gonna do it, or I'm gonna kill your mother. He doesn't know where she is. He makes sure his men don't tell Lex where she is, so he can't tell Superman. So okay, Superman's all at his mercy. That's fine. I'm good with all of this. So then Superman goes to Lois and he says, I'm gonna try to convince Batman to help me, or I'm gonna have to kill him. That was weird. I thought that was kind of weird that he was just already ready willy-nilly to be like, or I'll kill him. That's Superman. He doesn't really do that kind of thing. He's, I don't know, maybe he was just saying it he was processing it all through his head still. That's very possible. I didn't seem like super threatened, like the idea that was already there, like he's gonna kill him. He did say, I'm gonna try to get this guy to help me, or I'm gonna have to kill him. I just thought that was kind of weird that he was considering the notion of killing him for the life of someone else, even though it was his mother. That's not really Superman's thing. Whatever. I accepted it. He gets to Bruce, and then he's like, Bruce, I need your help. All right. We don't know how he knows he's Bruce Wayne. They don't tell you that. You can assume maybe he scanned him. Maybe he hears him. He knows what's going on. Maybe he already figured it out back at the mansion when they're at Lex's party, and Bruce Wayne is going to do some recon work and he's listening in. Maybe you figure he pieces it together that way. That's fine. That wasn't a huge problem for me. I just thought it was kind of weird that they didn't mention how he knows he's Bruce. He just, like, very cavalierly is just like, Bruce, I need your help. Batman doesn't even react. He was like, sure, why wouldn't he know I'm Bruce? So I thought that was kind of weird. And without even like a flinch, Batman's like, well, I'm here, and just starts throwing the punches. And then Superman's like, you don't understand, blah, blah, blah. Just kind of, you don't understand, filling time. And like all this time he's talking, I'm like, tell him. Just tell him. They have my mother. That would have obviously been enough to stop Batman, since the whole thing, when they finally come together, is like, oh, mothers. Our mothers have the same name. I'm going to stop your mother from dying like I couldn't stop my mother from dying. Which does ultimately bring them together that we've seen. So it's like, why didn't you just show up and be like, Lex has my mother, he's playing us, let's go. Got it. Fine. Done. Let's do this. But instead, they had to have a reason to fight, and then Superman does get, he starts getting egged on by the fact that Bruce is so stubborn and he won't let down. And I actually really like that. They definitely play up the stubbornness of Batman and Bruce Wayne in this, and I really appreciated that. So I was just kind of thinking, like, why didn't he just tell him? He could have just showed up and just told him that this was the case, this is what's happening. And I feel like it would immediately solve the problem. But again, it's called Batman v Superman. They had to get that fight in there. But maybe they shouldn't have called it Batman v Superman. Maybe they should have called it Batman and Superman, or maybe they should have just called it Dawn of Justice. Period. No Batman or Superman title in there, but Batman and Superman are what's going to get people in the seats, so of course they had to put it in the title. That's the problem. That's the big problem, is this all is bogged down by the marketing. It's all bogged down by the worry of building this bigger universe, of competing with Marvel, of making all the money. It's a problem instead of them just focusing on how to make a good movie. You call this Dawn of Justice. You don't need the big fight scene between Superman and Batman, because honestly, like I said, it left a little bit to be wanting. It gets kind of dragged out for a while, and like it's very slow pace. They're moving around, just kind of like throwing shit at each other's faces, and I'm like, all right, like, it's cool. There's a lot of cool stuff. I've seen it though, and like, there's not a good reason for it to be happening when it could have been resolved like very quickly. So the action there I had a problem with. Now moving on to some of the other fight scenes, I like the scene with Batman taking out the thugs when he's going to save Superman's mother. I loved that whole scene. I thought that was really cool. It was straight out of the Arkham games. I loved seeing him as Batman, not this lumbering tank. I love seeing how quick he can move and how badass he can fight, and how, like, really, he just, like, this Batman doesn't give a fuck. We see that a lot in this movie, which I love. As soon as we see him as Batman in the car chase, he immediately just crashes into this guy's car, flip him over, he doesn't even flinch, he just keeps driving, doesn't give a fuck. There's guys, like, gatling off miniguns at him, rip open their van, and they're shooting off the miniguns at him, and he's just kind of, like, driving forward. He tows the guy's car, he starts swinging it around, and you're like, oh shit, like this Batman is a different Batman. He's aged, he's been through some shit, he doesn't care quite as much as being as conservative as when he was young, and they do allude to that in some conversations with Alfred earlier in the film. So all the other fight scenes that involve Batman I thought were really cool. And then, of course, the big fight scene at the end with Doomsday. They bring in Doomsday kind of at the end. It's kind of like a last-minute thing. The fight was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. You get some cool stuff out of it. That's where Wonder Woman really shines, which is one of my biggest highlights of the film, is the fight with Wonder Woman and Doomsday. It's fucking awesome. The way she really shows off, like, she's a warrior. She loves to fight. You can clearly see she gets knocked on her ass and she gets up and she's like, all right, let's fucking do this. I really appreciated how strong she looked, especially next to these guys who just really couldn't handle Doomsday. Even Superman gets kind of thrown around by Doomsday, and we'll get to the end, believe me. And then Wonder Woman shows up and she's just like, I got this, dude. And when she gets knocked down, she's like, oh, okay, this guy's going to give me a challenge. Like, I'm in, let's go. So Wonder Woman is awesome. She's growling. She's like screaming, chanting, doing battle cries, throwing her sword around, we get the lasso in there. She restrains Doomsday with the lasso. That's awesome. She's for sure a highlight of the film. I loved Wonder Woman in this movie. She was so cool. Super, super awesome. Really true to what that character can be and what the character is. And I just loved her so much. Again, Batman was awesome. They do a lot of cool stuff. This is a really tortured version of Bruce Wayne. He's never over his parents. It affects him. He has nightmares. He's got a lot of problems because of the death of his parents. And I really appreciate that they played up that darker side of Batman, and it pays off for them. It established a very different tone from the Batman that we've seen in all these other movies, and it established that we have a more comic book version of Batman. He's much more brooding. He's much more brutal in the way he fights, and the way he moves, and the way he grapples around the city, and the way he uses the Batmobile. This is a comic book Batman for sure, but it is also a very dark take on Batman. So those are some of the pros for me. Another one of the pros were Lois and Clark. I love their relationship in this. I totally bought it. The way they call each other, the names, the pet names, the way they interact with each other, the way they're so there for one another in the more quieter moments of the film, when it finally does settle down from all of this action and just moving around so much, and you get that little moment between Superman and Lois right before he goes to take out Doomsday. And again, we're going to get to the ending, believe me. I'm going to save that for the end of the video. And he's just kind of like, I love you. I really love you. And you're like, that's great, dude. Like, more of that. Like, we need more character moments. Of course, people are in the seats for the action. We want the action. We want it when it's done right. But also, like, we need some of those smaller moments to appreciate who these guys are, what's on the line when they're fighting. It's necessary. And I really appreciated the small moments like that. I really appreciated the way they handled Batman's origins, personally. As we see, it's just done in the credits. I was really kind of like wondering how they would handle that. And it turns out the opening credits were just the whole story between Batman's parents and how he became Batman and all that. And they get it done by the time the credits are finished. And you're like, great, sweet, let's move on, let's do it. You don't feel anything emotionally, which is like, you'll probably care the least about Batman losing his parents in this movie. It's a double-edged sword. Because, like, you don't want to see it again and again and again and again. We all know what happens to Batman's parents. We've seen it. It's been done. And you don't feel anything from it. Personally, I didn't. But then at the same rate, like, in order to make you feel something from it, they probably would have had to spend more time on fleshing out his parents and who they are and all this. And, like, this is not the time for that. So, you know, you got to take the good with the bad. I personally prefer it this way. I'm okay with not feeling anything for Batman's parents. And we get the origins done quickly by the time the credits are done rolling. Cool, I'm in. But I can see why people might feel like, I want to feel something from this, but I don't. And that's because they can't spend a lot of time on it in order to make that happen for you. But I personally thought it was handled very, very well. Now, before we get into the end of everything, we'll talk about some of the Justice League stuff here. So the way they worked on the Justice League was really cool for me. I get it. People probably might think it's kind of a cop-out because the way they do it is Bruce grabs the flash drive from Lex. He goes and infiltrates Lex's place when he's at that party that I mentioned earlier. And he gets all the files off and he gets it on a flash drive. He's looking through. That's how he finds out this woman, Diana, who's been kind of meddling in his affairs, is Wonder Woman. And he emails her the files, and then she opens the files. And when she opens the files, she gets a little more curious than Bruce and looks through the Flash's folder. We see him for the first time. That's a really cool reveal. We see the Flash stopping a burglary in a convenience store when he's just there, like buying some milk or something. And he just kind of like looks back. He sees there's a thief at the counter. Boom! Flashes over. There's lightning all over the place. Papers are blowing all over the place. So that's what we see of the Flash. I thought that was super cool. Aquaman's reveal kind of left me a little bit wanting. They give a really slow, like weird, like pan. And he's like, his hair is flowing in the water, and he's like, "Hey, everybody, I'm here, and I'm Aquaman." And you're like, "All right, I get it," but it was cool in the beginning when you see him from a distance and his eyes are glowing, and you're like, "Oh shit!" If they just did that and just left him with the eyes glowing in the background, and then the trident flying at the camera like it did, I'm like, "Awesome, that's cool." Even at the end when you see him swim away, that was cool. But like, I could have did with just the eyes, trident at the camera, like, great. There's an Aquaman out there. That's all I needed to know. And then the stuff with Cyborg where his dad was experimenting on him. We see him come to life. Yeah, there's a lot of CGI. It seemed a little bit rushed, but what are you going to do? I mean, they wanted to show that he was out there. And that's cool. I get that he's out there, but it just started raining and my window's up, and that's why I keep looking over, by the way. It's raining really hard, but I'm just going to let this happen. So yeah, I thought the reveal of Flash was handled the best. Now, speaking of the Flash, the best part in this movie is, in the trailer, we've seen this nightmare that Batman has where we see Soldier of the Apocalypse and we see Superman coming down, unmasking Batman. He seems very, very brash, very hostile. We get all that. That's a very fleshed out kind of scene, quick scene in the movie. It's cool, and you don't really know what to make of it. Why is Batman having this vision? We're not really sure. It just happens. He's kind of delusional. He's tired. He's a little bit psychotic. So you're kind of left just up to, like, I guess he's just having like nightmares of what could happen if Superman runs out of control, until we're waiting for him to decrypt this flash drive. It's taking a little bit long. He's getting a little sleepy. And finally, he passes out. And then he wakes up. Why does he wake up? Because the Flash has come through time to warn him of the future. He's screaming something. I couldn't quite make out what he said. I did hear, "Lois is the key. Lois is the key. You were right. You were right about him all along." It's fucking awesome. Ezra Miller really proved that he could be a really cool Flash. We see him all armored up. He's got like some kind of armor over his armor, but we see that the Flash helmet lift up, and he's like screaming to Bruce, and he's like, "Lois is the key. You were right all along." You almost get the sense that like maybe Bruce sent him back to that moment to warn him of the future, to potentially stop it from happening. Now, the thing that's really going to tie that together is if later in these Justice League movies, if they're going to need to do that. They're going to need to show the scene where Bruce talks to Barry and is like, "Go, warn me. Tell me that this is going to happen. I can stop this." And then they show that scene again in maybe Justice League Part 2. That will totally tie this all up and be like, that's fucking awesome. Because that was a really, really surprising scene for me. I loved what happened with that. And they did say that they were going to play with the aspect of time for the Flash, and he's really going to be using his ability to travel through time to change things. So that was really fucking cool. Totally unexpected for me personally. Now, the thing I didn't really get is, like, he falls asleep. Bruce falls asleep, and he wakes up to the Flash, like, looking right at him through this time portal. And Bruce is in his house. He's in his Batcave, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And Flash is, like, screaming this at him. He looks like he's maybe being kind of, like, drugged back as he's trying to, like, talk. And then you're like, what is happening? Oh my God, he woke up. So like they lead you to believe like this is happening. The Flash is there in the Batcave right now. And then when the Flash goes away, they kind of seem like Bruce wakes up again, but the papers behind him are still like floating to the ground. And so you're like, well, I don't know, was that a dream within a dream? Did Flash alter the timeline to make it seem like he was sleeping, but he's not sleeping? Was Flash really there? It's weird. They don't tell you. I took it as he woke up to the Flash being there. That's the way I saw it. And I feel like it couldn't have been altering the timeline until Bruce wakes up a second time to this new universe where none of that will happen in the future, because at the end of the film, Bruce is talking to Diana and he's like, we have to get the others, meaning the other metahumans that they've seen, and Diana's had the files on. She viewed them, because like the whole reason I'm assuming here, he says, there's a line in the movie that I think a lot of people are going to maybe like not think is so great, and it's because they're not going to understand it. And I understand that they won't understand it, because he says, we have to get the others. And she said, why? And he says something like, to fight. They're going to have to fight. And she's like, what makes you think they'll have to fight? And then Bruce says something to the effect of, just a hunch. And then like, I can see why the audience might take that as being like, oh, okay. Like, we have to get the Justice League together. Why? I don't know. Just feel like it's something we got to do. Like, that's kind of the way it's played off, the way I took it as, and I think the way they intended it as, that vision from the Flash coming through, warning him, the nightmares that he's had, the Flash coming through to warn him, like, this is not cool, Lois is the key, all that. I think that really happened, and that's what leads him to be like, we have to get these guys together to work together to stop this possible threat from happening. That's the way I took it. They should have fleshed that out more and just fucking flat out said that, and it would have tied everything together a lot better. But that whole Flash thing, man, I thought was just awesome. There's a lot of cool comic booky things that happen in this movie that are like that. Like the whole thing where Batman goes to save Martha and Martha Kent. And he's got the criminal's got the gun, the Russian's got the gun pointed at her, and he's like, I'll do it, I swear. And then Batman's like, I believe you. And then he just is like, fuck it. And he shoots the tank, and then he goes and like puts the cape over him and Martha, and Martha's like, she's just like shocked, and she's looking at him, and he's like, I'm a friend of your son's. And like, I thought that was awesome. I thought that whole thing was super comic booky, super fun. It was one of the only more lighthearted moments in the film. And that's not a problem for me. I know this movie is dark. A lot of the critics are saying it's too serious, it's too dark. I disagree. I think it needed to be dark to establish itself from Marvel. I think it needed to be dark because the DC universe is inherently more dark than the Marvel universe, and they're trying to be more true to these characters, and I think that's fine. I think it's okay that there's not a whole bunch of jokes. I think it would have ruined it more if there was all of these like forced like comedic moments in a situation that's like not very funny. It's not a time to like laugh. Like, okay, let's look at the overarching plot here. Batman's got outs with Superman because he feels like Superman is a threat to the universe, to the world, whatever, depending on how grand of a scheme you feel like is at hand here. But so like, that's not funny. What's funny about that? You know, Superman is pissed off because Lex has his mother somewhere, shows him some very graphic photographs that your mom is in fucking trouble unless you do what I say. That's not funny. Superman is almost entirely murdered by Batman because Batman misunderstands his motives and his kryptonite and is slowly killing him and beating the shit out of him. Batman wins, by the way. The fight ends, and the fight ends because Superman's like, Martha, and then Batman's like, how do you know that name? And like, just be like, my mom, he's got my mom. Could have just said that. That's fine. And that ends very abruptly. That was a big problem of mine. Is I know I'm jumping everywhere here. My mind is racing about this movie. I feel so many things about it. But that was a big thing of mine. It's like, okay, you guys were just totally at odds, and then Batman just totally calms down and is like, oh, your mom. Our moms have the same name. I'm going to stop your mom from dying because I couldn't stop my mom from dying. Let's be friends. It happens very quickly. Happens very awkwardly. That fight ends very abruptly and very awkwardly. That was a kind of a problem for me. Back to what I was saying. There's nothing funny about it, though. It is awkward. There's nothing funny about it. I don't understand why people expected this to be Marvel, where like Iron Man can like drop down, make a joke, shoot somebody in the face, fly away, and make another joke. Like, it's not like that here. This is not a humorous situation. We have this fucking psychopath making this crazy fucking mutant tentacle monster from like a space uterus. Like, there's nothing funny going on. I mean, the way I said it is funny, but it's not supposed to be funny. So let's talk about Doomsday, right? Doomsday was kind of tacked on. He's Doomsday by name, pretty much, only, except the prophecy that he does fulfill. So Doomsday is whatever. He's there. There's not too much to talk about there. The fight's kind of cool. It brings them all together. They tried to have that big, like, we're a team moment where the three of them are, like, going back all around, like, trying to take out Doomsday. Kind of like the Avengers. It doesn't happen. It doesn't land. You don't get that moment where you feel like, yes, like, these three have done it. They're together. They're fighting together. They're going to take this guy out. That never happens. And they needed that moment, if you ask me. But Doomsday does kill Superman, doesn't he? Why does he kill Superman? I don't know. To bring him back. Who the fuck knows? I thought this was the biggest wasted opportunity in a comic book movie probably ever. So Superman finds the kryptonite spear earlier, from courtesy of Lois, to take out Doomsday. Now, like, he has this moment where he's like, I love you, Lois. I'm going to go kill this guy. And Lois is like, you don't have to. Like, and you don't have to. Because there's two other very capable warriors along your side that could have done it. But he's like, I have to. I have to. Because I'm the only one who's weak to this stuff. So why wouldn't I have to? You fucking didn't have to. You really didn't have to. He takes it upon himself to fly straight into him. He gets stabbed through the fucking heart, the chest, whatever. And then he pulls himself further to get the spear, like, through Doomsday to kill him, because he wasn't dead the first time he stabbed him. He wants to put it through him, get the kryptonite through him, because it is General Zod morphed into Doomsday, which I had a big fear that they were going to do, and they did, and I hated it. The whole Doomsday thing didn't work out for me. I hated that it was a regurgitated villain that Superman has already taken out. I didn't like any of that. And I didn't understand what the whole blood from Lex's hand thing had to do. I don't know if that was a symbol. I don't know if that was he actually needed his blood to birth him. I also didn't know you could reanimate corpses from the Genesis chamber, but he did it, and he does, and it does, and they do. So, I don't know. Doomsday was whatever. So, Superman dies, of course, is the big thing. Superman dies. And there's like a good... There was a good, like, 4 minutes after Superman dies where you're like, well, okay, right after he dies, right, and you see he's dead here. Batman gets his body. He's bringing it down. They're trying to have a moment. There's no moment. I didn't feel anything here that I feel like I was supposed to feel. I think a lot of people don't feel too much they're supposed to feel because we don't know these characters yet. Like, Batman and Wonder Woman are, like, around him, and they're bringing his body to Lois, and Lois is upset, and you're like, damn, that sucks, Lois. Like, Lois is sad. You feel for Lois because you know Lois and you know the relationship. But Batman and Wonder Woman don't know this guy, and they're like, this is awkward. And then you kind of feel like, this is awkward, watching these strangers take this guy's body down. Like, they're just like, oh, fuck. Like, a hero died. We don't really know him. But, like, it's not... That's where these previous movies would have come into play. If they built this up, and then, like, we already knew Batman. Batman has met Superman before. They worked together a little bit before. Wonder Woman knows them. They worked together before. And then they needed them. Batman maybe becomes an adversary of Superman. And then they fight. And then they wind up, they're like, wait, we're friends. We're being played. Let's come back together. And then this happens. And then he dies. And then it's like, damn, their friend died. Their partner died. But none of that happened because they're trying to do all of this in one movie. So that's a weird thing. That happens. So then there's a moment. Superman dies, and you're like, they didn't kill Superman. They're not going to kill Superman. He's going to come back any minute now. And then a couple more minutes pass, and I'm like, how far are we going with this here? And then another minute passes, and you're like, they killed Superman. He's fucking dead. There's a coffin. It's awesome. It's all black. It's got a silver Superman crest on it. It's fucking awesome. Super cool imagery. They scroll onto it, they pan down, and you're thinking in your head, one of two things are going to happen right now. The movie's going to end, or his hand's going to punch through it and he's alive. Which is stupid. They shouldn't have ever bothered killing him if they were going to bring him back minutes later. That's not what happens. They pan off the coffin, you're like, holy shit, they killed Superman. And then the funeral keeps going. And then they show Lois, and then they show Bruce and Diana, and then they show the coffin again, and then they show Lois, and then they show the coffin again. And now at this point, you're like, they're going to fucking bring him back. Of course, at the very, very end, after 3 different endings, the dirt on top of the coffin starts to move, starts to float a little bit, right as it would before Superman takes off. Then the movie ends. Superman's not dead, obviously. Why kill him if you're not willing to commit? So Well, I'm fine if you wanted to bring him back for the Justice League. Bring him back later. But leave that question for all this time that makes people want to come back for the Justice League. But, like, what's Justice League going to be like without Superman? Is Batman going to be able to leave the Justice League? Will they try and get him back? Are they trying to, like, bring his body back? Maybe they'll get him to the sun. Maybe that'll help. They really should have done something to just leave that mystery for you. Just until the next movie, even. Just to leave that mystery. Like, holy shit, did this happen? So that was probably my biggest regret of the movie, is that moment was wasted. It's not what it could have been. Super disappointed on that front. Now, I know I spent a lot of time talking about the cons at the end. I did like it. I thought it did some really cool shit. I'm going to see it again tonight, like I said, because I want to see more without being hindered by, like, thinking of how I'm going to review it. I liked it, though. I think if you're a comic book fan, I think if you're a DC fan, you need to see this movie. I think it's an important movie. I do. I think it's an important movie in terms of setting up their universe. I think it's an important movie that will divide audiences and critics alike. I think it's an important movie that will kind of change the way people think about comic book movies, especially because it doesn't always feel like a movie we felt before. There's a very different vibe to this movie that you feel, and it feels more like an actual comic book. And I couldn't help but feeling that the whole time I was watching it. So check it out. Don't write it off. Don't listen to the critics. And I have a couple of critics things written down here that I wanted to address. There was one particular critic that was talking to something about the CG. I'm not naming names here because I didn't look up the names and the direct lines, but one of the critics said something about, like, it's a giant boring CGI fest, blah blah blah. There's, like, no more CGI than any other Marvel or DC movie. You got superheroes fighting and monsters and stuff exploding. Like, sure, you're gonna need some CGI. That seems totally reasonable to me. It's not anything bad, and in fact, the movie is really pretty. The scope and visually, it's super pleasing. It's a really pretty movie, for lack of a better term. But I didn't think there was a problem with the CGI personally. I thought everything looked really cool. Everything looked good. Nothing looked super fake. Like, holy shit, that's bad CGI. I don't know. I thought it looked good. Too serious? I've already kind of addressed that. No, I thought it was serious enough. I am glad that they took it serious. I'm glad that it's darker, and I think it's gonna allow them to switch it up with the Justice League. And when some of these other more vibrant characters come into play, the Flash and Green Lantern, some more, like, over-the-top characters like Aquaman do come in and start playing off of people like Batman. Like, I think it's going to make for some more lighthearted moments that you're going to appreciate more, seeing from how dark a place Batman came from, etc. So I don't think it was too serious. And then the one I really want to address is there was a critic saying this movie is worse than Green Lantern. This guy needs to be stripped of his film license or whatever the fuck. He clearly is uneducated on movies. He's clearly uneducated on how to review movies and how to look objectively at a film. It's not even close to Green Lantern. I promise. If you read that and it deterred you, erase it from your brain. It's not fucking as bad as Green Lantern. It's not even bad, period. It's okay at worst. Okay? It's all subjective, of course. But I'm telling you, even if you think it's bad, if you do consider this a bad movie, it's not as bad as Green Lantern. It just isn't. It's not true. That's totally a fucking clickbait thing to say, and it's bullshit. Give it a chance. That's all. I mean, give it a chance. It's not my favorite movie of all time. Am I going to like Civil War better? Fuck yeah. Civil War is going to be a way better movie. Did I like Man of Steel better? I don't think so. I think I like this better than Man of Steel. I thought this was really cool. And I thought they tried some things that didn't quite land. I thought they tried some things that really did land. So check it out for yourself is really what I'm getting at here. Don't let the opinions of others influence how you feel about something, especially something that's so subjective like films or games or music. Art, pretty much, in general. So that's it. That's my review on Batman v Superman. I liked it. I'm going to go see it again. I hope you guys like it if you do go see it. And if you don't like it, that's cool. It takes different strokes. Let me know what you guys think about it after you see it, after you watch this video. Tell me in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel to expect more movie reviews, games, all kinds of things. I got a lot more coming in the future. I'm going to have a lot more time to get all this stuff going soon. So thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it. I would really appreciate it. Share it with your friends if they're looking for an opinion on Batman v Superman. And, your number one stop for all things comics, movies, games, and more is right here on YouTube.com/thebeastnj. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.